Did you know that the largest infiltration of the US government in history wasn't carried out by foreign spies or rogue hackers? No, it was orchestrated by a church. It's the 1970s, right? And there's this group, the Church of Scientology, founded by L. Ron Hubbard. Now, they weren't exactly everyone's favorite organization back then. I mean, the US government had its eyes on them because they were doing some shady stuff. The IRS, the FBI, even foreign embassies, they were all on high alert. And guess what? Scientology wasn't just sitting around. Oh no, they had this huge plan called Operation Snow White. Sounds like a Disney movie, right? But trust me, this story is anything but magical. By the way, I upload videos every week. So, if you enjoy this kind of content, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you won't miss a thing. Okay, now back to the story. So, Scientology decided they didn't like the way they were being talked about in government records. So, what did they do? They planned to wipe out every negative thing said about them in official documents. But they didn't just write letters or hire lawyers like normal people. Oh no, they went full-on spy mode. They got their members up to 5,000 people to infiltrate government offices in over 30 countries. Crazy, right? That's like a mini spy army. This was happening in America, the land of law and order. They sneaked into the offices of the IRS, the Department of Justice, even the DEA. They wiretapped phones, stole papers, and made illegal copies of classified files. These weren't just random nobodies either. Mary Sue Hubbard, yep, L. Ron Hubbard's wife, was one of the masterminds behind it all. Alright, so by the early 1970s, the Church of Scientology wasn't just unpopular. It was seriously under the microscope. I mean, they'd already had run-ins with the law before. Back in 1963, the FDA raided one of their offices because of some questionable claims about their e-meters, those devices they used in their religious practices. And the IRS. Oh man, they were not happy. They claimed the church owed millions in taxes. It was like the government had a giant magnifying glass over them. So, what did Scientology do? Did they back off or play nice? Nope. They went full steam ahead with a plan so bold, it's hard to believe. They decided to create their own secret service. Seriously, they called it the Guardian's Office, or GO for short. This branch was created in 1966, and its sole job was to protect the church's interests. Sounds innocent enough, right? Nope, it's not. These guys were the real deal when it came to espionage. By the time the 1970s rolled around, they had offices all over the place. Los Angeles, Washington, DC, even England. And they had this whole system where they divided their operations into bureaus. One of them, the Information Bureau, was basically their spy HQ. The big boss of all this was L. Ron Hubbard himself, but Mary Sue Hubbard, his wife, ran the day-to-day operations. She was like the queen of espionage. So, in 1973, the Guardian's office kicked off Operation Snow White. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing either. Hubbard himself wrote something called Guardian Order 732, where he told his followers to get rid of any negative stuff about Scientology in government files. And here's the kicker. He wanted it done legally. But, as you can imagine, things didn't exactly stay legal for long. The church started recruiting members to infiltrate government offices. And not just one or two offices. They were going big. Their main target? The IRS. Because, let's face it, nobody likes being chased for unpaid taxes. But they didn't stop there. They also went after the Department of Justice, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and even the US Coast Guard. These guys were sneaky, hiring loyal Scientologists to take jobs as clerks, typists, and even janitors in these places. Once inside, they'd snoop around, copy documents, and report back. One of their agents, Gerald Bennett Wolfe, managed to land a job at the IRS. And his supervisor? A guy named Michael Meisner, who was also deep in this operation. Together, they started stealing IRS documents about Scientology's tax-exempt status. And get this, by the end of 1974, they had sent a shipment of stolen files that was 20 inches thick. I mean, can you even imagine the audacity? But they weren't just stealing documents. They were planning fake information too. Like, there was this one plan called Operation Cat. I know, the name sounds ridiculous. The idea was to plant fake records about a cat with a pedigree name into government computers. Then, later on, the church would expose it as a fake, making the government look dumb. It was like something out of a comedy movie, but these folks were dead serious about it. And then, things got even more intense. By 1974, the church started bugging government offices. Yeah, like James Bond level stuff. In November, the IRS was having a meeting about Scientology's tax-exempt status. So, what did Scientology do? They sent an agent to bug the meeting room. No joke. This guy, Herman, broke into the conference room and planted a device that transmitted the meeting's audio to Scientologists sitting in a car in a nearby parking lot. They recorded the whole thing. I mean, the lengths they went to were just insane. By the end of 1974, Scientology had stolen so many documents that their agents couldn't keep up. They were literally sending piles of stolen files to their bosses in Los Angeles. Mary Sue Hubbard was getting reports almost daily about what they found. And these weren't small-time discoveries. They were stealing legal strategies, IRS memos, and all kinds of confidential stuff. But here's where it gets even crazier. In 1975, they expanded the operation even further. They planted agents in places like the U.S. Coast Guard Intelligence and the DEA. These agents were stealing even more documents and making secret photocopies. And Mary Sue Hubbard? She was loving it. She even wrote letters urging her agents to use any method at our disposal to win the battle against the government. By this point, it wasn't just about protecting Scientology's reputation. It was about total control. They wanted to know everything the government was saying or planning about them. And if that meant breaking into offices or forging documents, so be it. So, by the mid-1970s, things were heating up. Scientology's agents were everywhere, sneaking into government buildings, stealing files, and spying on officials. Gerald Wolfe and Michael Meisner, the dynamic duo of espionage, were leading the charge in Washington, D.C., especially at the IRS. Wolfe had his real IRS ID badge, while Meisner had a fake one. With those, they could roam around the IRS offices like they owned the place. Now, here's where it gets even crazier. In 1975, Wolfe broke into an IRS attorney's office right after Christmas. But instead of taking the documents and running, he used the office copier to make duplicates. He was using government paper to copy stolen files. Talk about bold, right? Then he'd meet Meisner at a local restaurant, and they'd go over the files, highlighting the juicy bits to send to their bosses in Los Angeles. This became their routine. Break in, steal documents, make copies, and send them off. But they weren't just focusing on the IRS. Oh no, these guys had a whole menu of government agencies they were targeting. For example, they got someone named Sharon Thomas to work at the U.S. Coast Guard Intelligence Agency. Another agent, Nancy Douglas, got a job at the DEA. These agents were like secret moles, slipping files out of their offices like they were grabbing snacks from the fridge. And Mary Sue Hubbard, she was still running the show. She'd send orders like, "Get all the files on Scientology, whatever it takes." And her agents didn't hold back. They broke into offices on weekends, after hours, and even during holidays when the buildings were empty. One time, Meisner and Wolfe stole a 12-inch thick stack of documents from the Department of Justice. Imagine hauling that out without anyone noticing. But here's where things started to fall apart. In April 1976, Meisner and Wolfe got sloppy. They were inside the IRS building late one night, breaking into an office to grab some files. A cleaning lady spotted them and thought, "Wait a minute, this doesn't look right." She called a security guard who came to check them out. Now, Wolfe flashed his legit IRS badge, and Meisner showed his fake one. The guard let them go, but you can bet this raised some red flags. That wasn't the worst of it. A few months later, the two were caught again at the U.S. courthouse in D.C. They'd been sneaking in to steal documents from a prosecutor named Nathan Dodell. They even made copies of his office keys so they could come and go as they pleased. But this time, a librarian noticed them wandering where they shouldn't be and called the FBI. When the agents showed up, Wolfe and Meisner played it cool, saying they were just doing legal research. The FBI let them go, but by now, the net was closing in. Meanwhile, back in Los Angeles, Mary Sue Hubbard and the Guardian's office were scrambling. They knew their agents were under suspicion, so they started covering their tracks. They destroyed evidence, came up with fake stories, and even tried to frame other people for their crimes. But it was too late. In July 1977, the FBI decided they'd had enough. They launched massive raids on Scientology offices in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. And when I say massive, I mean massive. The L.A. raid alone involved 156 FBI agents, the most ever used in a single raid at the time. They worked for 21 hours straight, hauling out truckloads of documents. They even filled a 16-ton truck with all the evidence they found. What did they find? Oh, just proof of everything. The break-ins, the spying, the stolen documents, and even more crazy plots. For example, they uncovered something called Operation Freakout, which was a scheme to frame an author named Paulette Cooper for making bomb threats. Why? Because she'd written a book criticizing Scientology. I mean, who does that? The FBI also found plans to target other enemies of Scientology, like Gabe Cazares, the mayor of Clearwater, Florida. The church had tried to frame him for a hit-and-run accident. They even had dirt on British politicians and mental health organizations they didn't like. It was like peeling back the layers of an onion, and every layer was worse than the last. Of course, the Church of Scientology didn't just roll over. Oh no, they went on the offensive, calling the FBI a Gestapo and claiming the raids were illegal. They even managed to get a judge to temporarily return some of the seized documents. But by this point, the damage was done. The world was starting to see just how far Scientology was willing to go to protect its image. Then came the real shocker. In 1978, 11 high-ranking Scientologists, including Mary Sue Hubbard, were indicted on 28 charges. And this wasn't just some small-time courtroom drama. These were serious accusations. Burglary, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, you name it. L. Ron Hubbard himself was named as an unindicted co-conspirator, which is basically the legal way of saying, we know you were involved, but we're not officially charging you yet. So the FBI raids in 1977 had completely blown the lid off Operation Snow White. The amount of evidence they found was insane. Documents, tapes, even handwritten plans for infiltrating the government. It was like a treasure trove of proof that Scientology had gone way beyond what anyone could have imagined. And with all that evidence, the US government wasn't about to let this slide. In August 1978, 11 of Scientology's top-ranking members were officially indicted. And when I say top-ranking, I mean the top. We're talking Mary Sue Hubbard herself, L. Ron Hubbard's wife, and the second-in-command of the entire church. The others included Gerald Wolfe, Michael Meisner's old partner in crime, and Cindy Raymond, who had been running operations behind the scenes. These weren't just foot soldiers. They were the brains of the operation. The church tried every trick in the book to get out of it. They subpoenaed nearly 150 federal agents, which was clearly a stalling tactic. They even tried to have a judge removed from the case, claiming he was biased. But none of it worked. The government wasn't backing down. By December 1979, the legal battles came to a head, and the 11 defendants struck a plea deal. 7 pleaded guilty to conspiracy to obstruct justice, 1 to a related charge, and another to a misdemeanor. They were trying to minimize the damage, but the fallout was still huge. When sentencing day arrived, the spotlight was on Mary Sue Hubbard, L. Ron Hubbard's wife, and second-in-command of the church. She was handed 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Imagine that. The wife of Scientology's founder, the organization's powerhouse, going to prison. It was monumental. 5 others got 4 years and similar fines, and some were taken into custody right there in the courtroom. 4 more received shorter sentences, including one who only got 6 months in jail. And what about L. Ron Hubbard? Well, while all this chaos unfolded, Hubbard vanished into hiding. Meanwhile, Jane Kember and Mo Budlong, the last 2 defendants, were in England, refusing to be extradited. They claimed their crimes were political, but the British courts didn't buy it. One judge even said, organizing burglaries to protect a church's reputation isn't political, it's just plain illegal. By 1980, both were extradited, convicted, and sentenced to 6 years in prison. Now, let's not forget the fallout from all this. The Church of Scientology went into full damage control mode. They claimed the Guardian's office had been infiltrated and that the members involved had gone rogue. Basically, they threw their own people under the bus, saying, "Oh, those guys? Yeah, they were bad apples." But the evidence told a different story. It was clear that this wasn't just a few rogue agents. This was a coordinated, top-down operation. And the consequences weren't limited to the U.S. Operation Snow White, had also extended to other countries like Canada. Legal proceedings were launched there as well, further tarnishing the church's reputation. By 1990, all 11 defendants had finished serving their sentences and were free, but the damage to Scientology's image was permanent. They'd been exposed as a secretive, manipulative organization willing to go to any lengths to protect their interests. And there you have it, the rise and fall of Operation Snow White. Until next time, take care.